Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Man Uncaved. Today, we are going to take a look at a story that I believe most of us have heard about since we were kids, and that is the story of Adam and Eve. But we're not going to look at this from a religious lens, but more from a symbolic one. Because whether or not you actually believe in the Bible, this story, I have come to understand, is packed with deep truths about the masculine, the feminine, and the fragmentation I believe that we all can carry inside. Now, this is a story about the fall from grace, but also about the path back to wholeness. So let's go ahead and let's jump into this today. Now, Adam and Eve, most people think of this story as just about sin and shame. But what if it's actually about something more ancient? The internal split that happens when our heart is no longer aligned with our mind, when our masculine and feminine energies are at war with each other. So let's just start to break this down a little bit and kind of rip this into little parts and kind of construct it in a new concept. Now let's look at Adam, for instance. Now Adam can be the representation of what is the masculine principle, the masculine, the logic, structure, order, direction. He's the part of us that wants to build, plan, fix, protect. It's conscious. It's the one that wakes up and says, here's what needs to be done. Now, masculine energy is penetrating. It drives forward. It sets boundaries. It creates containers for safety and clarity. Now, let's take a look at Eve. Eve, on the other hand, represents the feminine principles, the intuition, emotion, flow, and mystery. Now, she's the part of us that feels more than she knows, that moves in cycles, that wants to nurture and connect. The feminine isn't less than the masculine. It's actually just different. It's the moon to the sun, the river to the mountain, the womb to the sword. See, we've been conditioned to believe that logic is more valuable than intuition, that strength is more respectable than vulnerability, that direction is more important than presence. But that's a lie. And it's one that's left a lot of men stuck, fragmented, and spiritually hollow. See, the masculine, the sun, the sword, the structure is absolutely necessary. It gives us form, focus, discipline, and direction. It says, this is the path, let's go. But without the feminine, the moon, the river, the womb, we're all action with no source. We're disconnected from our own heart. We become machines of performance, or worse, shells chasing approval and achievement while dying inside. And the feminine is where life begins. It's the soil we return to when the storms of life hit. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It doesn't yell, it feels. It doesn't push, it guides. And in each of us, yes, even the most hardened stoic men, both of these energies exist. One isn't meant to dominate the other. They're meant to dance together. Now, when the heart, the feminine, Eve, and the mind, the masculine, Adam, are aligned, we're no longer at war with ourselves. The shame, the confusion, the reactivity, it all starts to settle. Now, this is where the human and the being come together. This is where the fragmented self starts to heal. Now, let's stay along with this story of the Garden of Eden as they approach in the representation of the serpent. The serpent is the trickster. This is the one that's the ego deflator, the disruptor. The serpent represents transformation, because what will all serpents do when they transform is they actually shed their skin to become something new. However, it is also the whisperer that says, you're not enough. You could be more. God is holding out on you. And when Eve listens, something happens. She reaches beyond what she was told. She questions, and then Adam follows. Now, this moment, this so-called fall, is more than a mistake. It's the moment we become fragmented. So what happens when the mind, Adam, and the heart, Eve, split? You have confusion, you have shame, you have fear, and a feeling of being not enough or unsafe in the world. And this is what so many men today, including myself, have struggled with and continue to struggle with. We're men who can't feel, who don't trust our own emotions, who are logical but disconnected, who push forward, produce, protect, but don't know how to rest, to soften, to receive. We think being a man means holding it together when the truth is we're holding back huge parts of ourselves, the parts that were exiled the moment we left the garden. Now let's talk about the Garden of Eden, not just as a biblical location, but as a deep metaphor for something primal, the womb. The garden is symbolic of where we came from, a place of safety, connection, nourishment. It's the divine mother space, the original union. Before the story of sin, shame, or exile, there was wholeness, peace, belonging. Everything we needed was there, and then we left. Or maybe more accurately, we were pushed out. And this is where the story of fragmentation begins. Leaving the garden was our first betrayal, not because someone ate a piece of fruit, but because we experienced the rupture of leaving perfect safety. This is the first wound. The moment we became separate from the womb, from the mother, from God, from ourselves, psychologically, this parallels birth. The moment we're no longer held, the moment we go from warmth and oneness to cold air, bright lights, and crying alone. We didn't know it at the time, but that was the beginning of fear, shame, and longing. And so much of our adult life, especially as men, is driven by the desire to get back to that garden, that womb, that feeling of unconditional love, safety, and peace. But here's the twist. We don't get back there by avoiding pain, by dominating, by achieving more. We don't get back there by numbing out, people-pleasing, or chasing validation. We get back there by going through the fragmentation, by turning towards the pain, the shame, the confusion, and learning how to hold it. That's how we find the self again. And in that process, we're not just healing ourselves, we're healing the first betrayal, the one that made us believe we were separate in the first place. And there's one more layer to this story we need to name: the father wound. Because if Eve represents the mother wound, the heartbreak of leaving the womb and no longer feeling held, nurtured, safe, then Adam carries the father wound, the pain of not being protected, guided, or seen by the masculine. Now, many of us men, and I've mentioned my story many times, have never had a father who truly showed up, not emotionally, not spiritually, sometimes not at all. And that absence didn't just hurt, it left a gap in who we believe we are. We were looking for a mirror and saw nothing. So we became fragmented. But here's the deep truth. Life, the healing journey, is the road back. Back to alignment, back to integration, back to the parts of us that got cut off when love didn't show up the way we needed it to. Now let's look at even the Holy Trinity points us towards this path. Let's just think about that. The Father, the masculine consciousness, presence, the Son, the child, the heart, the receiver, and the Holy Spirit, the union, the being that emerges when heart and mind are in harmony, when the masculine gives and the feminine receives, and the whole system is in a sacred alignment. It's the vertical and the horizontal, the heaven and earth, the mind and heart, human and being. And when those aren't aligned, We feel lost. We feel numb and angry, disconnected. But when they are, you don't just act like a man, you embody one. Not the wounded warrior, not the nice guy, not the disconnected provider, but the integrated man, the one who can hold his power and his pain, the one who can speak his truth without shame, the one who is no longer at war with himself. That's the path we're walking. Back to the Father, back to the Mother, back to the garden, not because we're broken, but because we're finally remembering. Now, what does it mean to be at war with ourselves? To actually be at war with the parts of ourselves that we don't understand or don't accept, the feminine and the masculine. Now, remember the story of Adam and Eve. This isn't about a myth of two people eating some fruit and messing up paradise. It's a metaphor for our internal landscape, for the way our masculine and feminine energies have split apart, have become fragmented. And when those energies are actually fragmented within us, we start living in conflict, not just internally, but externally with the people we love. So when the inner masculine is wounded, when we're disconnected from our own healthy inner masculine, we become either rigid and controlling, needing to dominate everything to feel safe, or passive and checked out, emotionally numb, drifting, unable to lead or protect. Either way, we don't show up with grounded strength. We either try to control our partner or we disappear when things get real. We avoid responsibility, not just in the relationship, but in ourselves. This is the Adam archetype out of balance, disconnected from both the heart and his purpose. Now, when the inner feminine is wounded in men, let's flip it. When we reject our inner feminine, we cut ourselves off from emotions, from intuition, from our ability to feel and connect. We start to see emotion as weak, vulnerability as dangerous. So we either dismiss the emotional needs of our partner or project our own suppressed feelings onto them. Now, this is how we unconsciously punish women for carrying the very emotional world we rejected in ourselves. It's like we're still in Eden, pointing fingers at Eve and saying, it's your fault. We blame the feminine because we haven't made peace with it inside ourselves. Now, resistance looks like projection. Now, let's be real. If you're a man who grew up without emotional safety, without guidance, without a model of integrated masculinity, then of course you're going to resist parts of yourself. You'll resist softness. You'll resist surrender. You'll resist not having all the answers. But guess what? Those are feminine qualities. And the more you repress them, the more they will leak out sideways. You'll find yourself triggered by emotional women. You'll label them too much. You'll shut down when they cry. Not because they're the problem, but because they mirror the parts of you that never got the chance to cry, feel, or be held. That's projection, and it's sabotage. Now, healing doesn't mean becoming less masculine. It means becoming more whole. It means letting Adam and Eve reconcile inside you. Letting the logical, directed part of you learn to trust the emotional, intuitive part, and vice versa. When the masculine and feminine are at peace inside of you, you stop making war with women. You stop demanding that they carry what you won't. You stop abandoning yourself when things get hard. You lead, not just in action, but in presence. You feel, not just to cry, but to connect. And your relationships shift because you're no longer fragmented. You're no longer projecting Adam's shame onto Eve. You come back into union with yourself, with your heart, with part of you that never left the garden. It just forgot how to get home. So let's talk about some tools that us men can use to realign that masculine and feminine, the Adam and Eve. Well, one, stop blaming Eve. Start listening to her. Now, in the Genesis story, Adam blamed Eve for the fall. Now, we still do this today. blaming women or emotion or drama for our discomfort. Next time you feel triggered by your partner's emotion, ask yourself, what part of me feels threatened by this? Instead of shutting down or getting reactive, listen. She may be voicing something your own feminine side has buried. This is your chance to integrate, not dominate. 2. Let the masculine lead with presence, not control. Adam's role wasn't to rule over Eve. It was to hold space for both of them in the garden. When men are disconnected from their healthy masculine, they lead with control instead of grounded presence. Practice being present without fixing. Sitting in discomfort. Hold your partner's emotions like you would hold sacred ground. Not something to fix, but something to witness. This strengthens the inner masculine and makes space for the feminine to breathe. 3. Let your inner Eve speak. Eve represents the unconscious, the intuition, the inner world, the emotions most men were taught to shut down. Start a daily emotional inventory. Just 2 minutes. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What part of me is asking to be seen? What emotion have I ignored today? The more you hear Eve's voice within, the less she'll scream at you through your relationship. 4. Embrace the serpent. Shed the old skin. The serpent in Genesis isn't just the trickster, it's also a symbol of transformation. It invites the fall, but also the awakening. Now ask, what old belief about masculinity or emotions do I need to shed? Maybe it's men don't cry or vulnerability is weak. Let it die. Let yourself evolve. This is how we return to Eden, not by pretending we never left, but by owning our own journey back. Balance doing with being. The masculine does, the feminine is. Most men are stuck in constant doing, achieving, fixing, pushing, but without being, you burn out and feel empty. Schedule 15 to 20 minutes a day to do nothing productive. No phone, no agenda, just breathe, be, walk, journal, watch the sky. This is not laziness. This is integration. This is letting Adam sit with Eve in the garden without trying to control it. Now, when Adam and Eve were in the garden, they were whole. The serpent didn't cause the fall. Our disconnection from ourselves did. The way back isn't through shame or blame. It's through reconnection. When you honor both Adam and Eve within, you don't just heal yourself, you break the cycle for the next generation. You become a man who leads not from ego, but from alignment. All right, everybody, if you enjoyed this episode and it stirred something in you, maybe it challenged you, maybe it made you think or gave you a new perspective, I'd love for you to share it with a friend, a brother, or anyone walking their own path back to wholeness. And if you're feeling generous, leaving a review helps this message reach more men who might be ready to take the next step. Thanks for being here. As always, my name is Shane. This is Man Uncaved. We need to come out of hiding.